The controversial side of President Woodrow Wilson, 12 disturbing facts. Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, is a figure often celebrated for his progressive ideals. However, a deeper look into his tenure reveals a series of controversial actions and beliefs. Let's delve into 12 unsettling facts about Wilson that have made historians and scholars rethink his legacy. Fact number 1. A proponent of white supremacy. Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, has been extensively critiqued for his deeply ingrained racist views, which were profound even by the standards of his time. Born in the South shortly before the Civil War, Wilson's upbringing and environment significantly influenced his perception of race. While many of his contemporaries subtly endorsed white supremacy, Wilson's endorsement was overt. He believed in the inherent superiority of the white race and often upheld the ideologies propagated by white supremacists. This deeply prejudiced mindset was evident in his policies, particularly when he approved the segregation of several federal offices. Number 2. Laudation for The Birth of a Nation. In 1915, a film titled The Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffith was released, which is infamously known for its portrayal of the Ku Klux Klan as heroes and its deeply racist depiction of African Americans. The movie's presentation resonated with Wilson's personal beliefs, leading him to not only screen the film at the White House but also openly praise it. His reported comment, "It can tell history with lightning," underlined his approval of the movie's controversial narrative. Such an endorsement from the highest office in the land gave the film an unwarranted legitimacy and further empowered white supremacists. Number 3. Women's rights, an afterthought. Wilson's presidency witnessed the historic passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920, granting women the right to vote. However, it's crucial to note that Wilson was not initially in favor of women's suffrage. He believed in preserving the status quo and had reservations about women participating actively in political processes. However, the relentless efforts of suffragists, massive protests, and the undeniable wave of public sentiment in favor of women's rights forced Wilson to change his stance. By 1918, facing immense public pressure and recognizing the strategic political importance of the amendment, Wilson grudgingly began to support the movement, leading to its eventual ratification. However, his late support is often seen as politically motivated rather than a genuine change of heart. Number 4. Prohibition and its consequences. President Woodrow Wilson was a fervent advocate of prohibition, which sought to ban the production, sale, and transport of intoxicating liquors. He believed that banning alcohol would lead to a more moral and upright society, free from the ill effects of drunkenness. In 1919, the 18th Amendment was ratified, making prohibition the law of the land. However, while the intention behind prohibition might have been noble, its implementation led to a surge in organized crime, illegal speakeasies, and the widespread production of moonshine. This illicitly produced alcohol lacked quality control and often contained toxic substances. As a result, many unsuspecting Americans fell ill or even died from consuming tainted beverages. Instead of ushering in a period of increased morality, prohibition inadvertently caused more harm than good. Number 5. The aftermath of the Treaty of Versailles. In the aftermath of World War I, Woodrow Wilson played a pivotal role in drafting the Treaty of Versailles. He went to Paris with his famous 14 points that emphasized peace and justice. However, the final treaty, heavily influenced by France and Britain, imposed severe reparations on Germany and led to significant territorial losses for the nation. While Wilson had hoped for a peace without victory, the punitive measures against Germany fostered a climate of deep resentment, economic instability, and national humiliation. These factors created fertile ground for extremist ideologies, and by the 1930s, Adolf Hitler and his Nazi Party capitalized on this discontent, ultimately leading to the outbreak of World War II. Number 6. A presidential victory by chance. The 1912 presidential election is noteworthy in American history for the unique circumstances surrounding Wilson's victory. The election saw a rift within the Republican Party, leading to a division of votes between its two major contenders, Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. Roosevelt, dissatisfied with Taft's policies, decided to run as a third-party candidate under the Progressive Party, also known as the Bull Moose Party. This division within the Republican base effectively split their vote. As a result, Wilson, running as a Democrat, managed to secure the presidency despite garnering only 42% of the popular vote. His victory was less an endorsement of his policies and more a testament to the divisions within his opposition. Number 7. A progressive in name only? While Woodrow Wilson ran on and often championed progressive platforms, many of his actions in office starkly contrasted with these proclaimed ideals. Genuine progressives of the era sought to challenge established power structures, enhance workers' rights, and address economic inequality. However, during his tenure, Wilson often sided with conservative factions over issues like racial segregation, effectively reversing the modest gains made in civil rights during the previous administrations. While he did implement some progressive reforms, such as the Federal Reserve Act and antitrust legislation, many historians argue that these moves were inconsistent with other regressive policies, particularly in the areas of civil liberties and race relations. Number 8. The Promise and Betrayal of 1916. The presidential campaign of 1916 saw Woodrow Wilson running on the back of a powerful promise encapsulated in the slogan, "He kept us out of war." The message resonated with a war-weary public, wary of becoming embroiled in the devastating World War I that was consuming Europe. This promise played a significant role in securing Wilson's re-election. However, the winds shifted rapidly. By April 1917, just a few months after his inauguration for a second term, Wilson sought and received approval from Congress to declare war on Germany, plunging the U.S. into the very conflict he vowed to avoid. Critics argue this move represented a profound betrayal of the trust the American public had placed in him. Number 9. Fumbling the response to the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu of 1918 stands as one of the deadliest pandemics in history, infecting an estimated one-third of the world's population and causing the death of tens of millions. Wilson's administration's response to this unparalleled health crisis was, at best, disjointed and, at worst, negligent. While countries around the world grappled with implementing quarantines, promoting the use of masks, and disseminating public health information, the Wilson administration largely remained silent on the issue. There was no significant nationwide effort to educate the public or control the spread of the disease. To make matters worse, President Wilson contracted the flu in early 1919 while attending the Versailles Peace Conference. His illness and the absence of a coordinated response underscored the administration's failure to adequately address a crisis that deeply scarred the nation. Number 10. Taking steps backwards, the resegregation of federal services. While the late 19th and early 20th centuries were marred by systemic racism, steps were being taken to promote integration, especially in the federal workforce. Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft, Wilson's immediate predecessors, made strides towards this end, appointing black statesmen to prominent positions. However, Wilson, influenced by his Southern upbringing and racist beliefs, actively worked to undo this progress. Under his administration, separate facilities were reinstated for black and white workers in federal offices, including segregated washrooms and lunch areas. Such measures not only institutionalized racism but also demoralized African American workers, many of whom were demoted or dismissed from their positions. Number 11. Diplomatic discrimination, ignoring black ambassadors. Historically, the U.S. often appointed black ambassadors to Haiti and the Dominican Republic, recognizing the significance of racial representation in diplomacy with predominantly black nations. This custom was upheld by multiple administrations, reflecting a degree of respect for racial diversity in foreign relations. However, Woodrow Wilson deviated from this practice. Under his administration, no black ambassadors were appointed to either nation. Such decisions were more than mere oversights, they were reflective of Wilson's racial prejudices and his willingness to allow these biases to influence diplomatic practices. Number 12. Stifling voices, Wilson's war on dissent. Freedom of speech, a cornerstone of American democracy, was severely tested during Wilson's presidency. Wilson's intolerance for dissent was glaring, especially during World War I. Under the Espionage Act of 1917 and the Sedition Act of 1918, individuals could be penalized for speaking against the government, the war, or the military. These laws resulted in the arrest and imprisonment of thousands, including prominent figures like socialist leader Eugene V. Debs, who was sentenced to 10 years in prison for an anti-war speech. Critics argue that such policies went beyond protecting national security, serving more to suppress opposing voices and curtail civil liberties.